So I talked about Florence's book, and again, Carrie, I want to thank you for really sharing this book with me. I know I came up, and Carrie said, "I have it. I know her work." And I said, "Okay." So and she said she found it in audio, and I said I dove right in, and I said, "This is exactly what we're doing in our challenge." So just to share a little bit about Florence Colville Shin, she taught us that life is not random. Just as the physical world operates by natural laws, the inner world operates by spiritual laws. And we always talk about going inwards. Her message can be summed up in one line: what you think, what you believe, what you speak eventually becomes your experience. So, this is why we're so big on really being intentional, because we don't want to attract the things we don't want. We want to attract the things that we do want. We don't want to focus on the things that we don't want. We want to focus on the things that we want. And this is why our challenge, I really love it so much. It's all about gratitude, visualization, affirmations, and really focusing on that person who you are becoming. So that really thrills me a lot. Going back to one of the great points is imagination, and that's where the visualization comes in. Imagination is one of our greatest gifts, because we could sit and we can go and do whatever we want to do in our imagination. And what's so great about imagination is everything is created twice: first in thought and then in form. We all create that mental picture. Okay, so going back to, I think about the athletes. I heard Tiger Woods say this: how many times he see himself playing his game in his mind, and this is how he became the greatest. The Michael Jordans of the world, Serena Williams. They see themselves. So whatever we see in our mind, it can definitely come into form. It could be matter, and especially when we add emotions to it. And that's the key: adding the emotions, feeling it, seeing it. There's many times when when I go deep into the visualization, tears come to my eyes, because it's so real. And we heard it mentioned here before, talk about the adding all the emotions, the gratitude, the joy, expectation, as expected. The outcome. What do you want the outcome to look like? So really, that really okay, activates what we want to bring about, because our body is responding to whatever our mind is experiencing, especially and experiencing repeatedly. So we have to be careful. Okay, so the question is, what are you rehearsing every day? So taking that time to start your day right, okay, it's so important. Even if you have to get up, uh, uh let's just say 10 minutes earlier. Or if you have 5 minutes, get up 5 minutes earlier. Okay, start with what you have. But again, it has to be intentional. Okay, so how do you talk about busy? Everybody's saying they're so busy. So guess what you're gonna get? Busyness all the time. Okay, is that what you want? So if the business is not creating what you want, okay, you gotta sit back and say, okay, what am I creating? Because we are co-creators. And the life we are living is what we created. So if we want to change, we have to change it. Going back again to being intentional about that change. So we have to become the change we want to see. Go next slide. Imagination. No, that's not my next. It's that my next slide. Hold on. That's not. Okay, where's my slide? Not changing. I'm so sorry. Slide number 3. Okay, going back to your words. So we're going back, we talked about being busy. Okay, so when we talk about being busy, all we're going to get is busyness. Is the busyness serving us? So if the busyness is not serving us, we got to change it. So words are not empty. And I am so big on, I had to work on that. And Carrie could tell you about the words, every time I say, but you don't have to say it. One of my coaches said to me recently, not recently, but back when I first started learning about affirmations and our words, his wife, she wasn't feeling well that day. And she said, "Oh, I'm not feeling well." And I heard him turn to her and say, "Well, honey, you don't have to say it." And I was like, that is so true because when we put it out there, okay, it's going to persist. Okay, so we have to really be mindful of the words. We don't have to add any negative energy to it. So she believes that everything has influence. Our beliefs, our emotions, and our actions, they influence who we are becoming. We talked about Shin taught the put this way. Shin taught us that words are not empty. They carry creative power. A lot of times we get up and we talk about what we want, and we're really into it. And then later on in the day, we fall back into our old selves. So going back to the awareness and really doing that daily check-in. So check in daily with what you're saying. Because you can catch it in the air. When the negative words come out, reframe it, catch it and reframe it. Because thank God the universe will answer immediately to our words. So catching it and reframing it, it makes all the difference. So imagine your GPS, you set the destination, but then you constantly keep changing it. It's just like that. The GPS becomes confused. Okay, where do you want to go? So going back to being intentional, because we have to have a clear vision. And who's this? Talked about Napoleon Hill talks about the desire, having a burning desire. So we have to have a clear burning desire of what we want, and we have to be intentional about doing the work to receive it, doing the work to get it. And the Kristen talked about the vision, how it came to her, and that's how it works. It's hard to not really hard to explain, but God keeps it so simple. When we start adding, uh, let's just say, let me see, force, or we want to add, not just force, or just we want to manage things. We just want to put it out there what we want, and then allow. Okay, so visualize it is so important, but then it goes back again to being grateful, allowing things to happen, just releasing it. So I hope I'm making sense. So I don't making sense. So let me see another yes in the chat. I don't know if I can see the chat from here, but I hope it's resonating. Going
Attention without tension. That's what you're
yes,
saying.
attention without tension. That's right. So we don't want to cancel out all the work that we're putting in. We don't want to cancel it out later on in the day. So we start our morning nice, really right. And then during the day, we kind of fall off. So we don't want to do that. So we throughout the day do that daily check-in and going back to being thankful and grateful, going back to that gratitude again. Okay. So we don't want to say, I hope things work out. We want to say, I am thankful and grateful that everything is working together for my highest good. So just framing the words. One of the things that I learned from, you had James's name mentioned here. And one of the things I learned from him, he talked about the rhythm. So when we say our affirmation, add a rhythm to it. So my affirmations was, I am healthy, wealthy, sexy, and full of energy at 165 pounds. And it was so easy to say that because it just flowed. And the subconscious mind tends to really receive it even faster when we add a rhythm to our affirmations. So while we're doing that, just think about that. Use the word that add rhythm to that. And what's the next one? I know I'm gonna be mindful of time. Okay, gratitude. Going back to gratitude. Gratitude opens the door to miracles. So we always everybody talking about gratitude. So it's always great to have an attitude of gratitude. Going back to the Jesus story, I just love the story so much. The when he talked about the two loaves and five loaves and two fish. Going back to gratitude opens the door to abundance. I mean, that day, I don't know if you believe the story or not, but that's what it says, and I'm gonna go with that. He talked about there were 5,000 men, and the little child, all he had was two fish and five loaves. And the disciples says, how are they gonna feed all these people? And God says, give me what little we have, give it to me. And he multiplied it. And at the end of the day, after everyone ate, they still had 12 baskets left over. So going back to when we go into gratitude, God gives us more things to be grateful for. And what that leaves us with is overflow and abundance. Because that's what he wants for us. And that's always my prayer, to serve from my overflow. Going back to, I don't want to serve from depletion. Okay, going back to overflow, just fill me up. He talked about it being pressed down, shaken, pressed down, and overflowing. That's a real thing. That's what he wants for us. So we do have to trust him when it comes to abundance. Okay, so I just want to go along and then okay, healing. Going back to one of the things we don't talk much about in our discipline, which was one of the pillars, was forgiveness. And oftentimes when we see things are not happening the way we want it to happen, and it sometimes it's just unforgiveness that's holding us back. There's things that we need to forgive, and it's holding us. So I challenge you to every day, daily, start with a clean slate. Start with a clean slate. Okay, because not that you're forgiving not that whatever anybody else did was okay, but it frees you. Sometimes healing must happen. That healing has to happen before that transformation. So we have to release the hurt. The old wounds, the disappointment, the resentment, old stories, it can hold us. And it took me some time to get this. But when I got it, I got it. So every day before I even start my day, when I'm doing my devotion, I start off with, if I offend anyone, even myself, because who's the hardest one to forgive is self. So we take the time to forgive and really sit with that. Okay, so next slide. Okay, the law of non-resistance. Going back to what we resist often persists. And Florence had a really great story about this in her book. She talked about, we have these superstitions, and she talked about this woman who said she's always afraid to go walk on the ladder. So for years, she would always, there's a ladder, she would go around. And she would say, well, why would you be afraid of a ladder? If you trust in God, you trust in God, that you can't be afraid of a ladder. And she said, okay, I'm gonna test it. So she had to go to the bank, to the vault. So going down to the vault in the bank. When she got to where her cubbyhole was, how many vault, she had to go under a ladder. And in the story, she talks about the woman said, I can't do it. She turned around and she went back upstairs. And as she got upstairs, she talked to herself and she said, no, I have to do it. And as she went back downstairs to go to her vault, the ladder was not there anymore. The ladder was gone. So not that the ladder disappeared, and it's just that how we attract things. So whatever she was fearing, it showed up. So the minute she challenged the fear, it disappeared. And it's a work in progress. Okay, these are the things that we constantly with to help us to really bring about. Marian talked about being consistent in manifestation. So these are the little things that will help us. Fear is not going to help us. Being fearful, it's not going to. Fear is really inverted faith. Okay, so we got to work on overcoming that fear. So it's like when we plant that seed, we water it, we wait, trust the process. Don't dig it up. Just trust the process. Release the attachment to the outcome. Go into faith. And this one I really like a lot. Went a slide too far. Okay. So faith is really believing things before it happened. So when we visualize and we talked about who are we becoming, we're visualizing the person we're becoming. Okay, because between whatever that person is, the subconscious mind, okay, there's no right or wrong. The subconscious mind is really your servant. Okay, so whatever you put into that container, that's what you're going to get out. So I just love the fact that as we continue fasting, okay, we see ourselves losing weight, okay, or we see ourselves getting more disciplined about doing the things that we don't want to do. So if we fast from, let's just say we fast from, I'm using sodas as an example, okay, even doing fasting from sodas, you could lose a good 20 pounds because of the sugar. So visualizing and practicing gratitude is so important. Trusting the process. Okay. So faith is believing before seeing. Okay. Trust the evidence before it appears. And as I was reading Napoleon's Hill book, because one of the things I added in this process, in this discipline, is going back to reading at least 30 minutes a day. And in Napoleon's Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, I never got to this point because I read this book. I had this book for years and I never really completed it. And now I'm to the point where his son was born with no heirs. Now, for those of you who don't know Napoleon Hill, he wrote the book Think and Grow Rich, where he interviewed over 500 wealthy men and really came up with the secret to manifesting also. And his son, born with no heirs, the doctors told him that his son will be a mute and he will be mute and deaf. Oh, I'm over 10 minutes. Ay, ay, ay. Okay. He will be mute, he'll be a mute and he will be deaf. But Napoleon Hill said, I'm not receiving that. So let's fast forward to the kid. Right now, his name is Blair Hill. Now his kid can hear. He went through high school. He spoke. And Napoleon Hill insists that, yes, you're going to speak. And by that, believe in having faith. Okay. He defied nature. And his son never had to go to any special school. He went to regular schooling, went to college. Okay. Eventually, they got a hearing aid that worked for him. And now he's living the life of his dream. So, yes, how faith works. I'm going to move this along. Okay, so just to talk a little bit about our challenge is all about fasting, visualization, gratitude, being intentional about our words to reinforce our identity, and having that faith that we will accomplish our dream. So, in closing, I want to remind us that transformation isn't just about getting what we want, it's about becoming the person capable of receiving. It's all about who am I becoming? So the
Bottle
question is,
yesterday.
who am I becoming?
And I need a bottle of water somewhere.
Okay. So with that, I'm up to my last slide. I'm gonna stop share. Okay. I know I'm over time. Please look at me. Okay. So yes, so I got through that. I know we're over time. So any feedback, any comments, I'm open, and I would love to do more of this. I love hosting, so presentations is like I'm stepping out. I stepped out of my comfort zone. So any comments, anything you want to share to that, I hope something resonated with you. You could unmute yourself if you have. Kristen said awesome. Thank you, Kristen.
I
Teresa.
I I just want to say, Diane, excellent presentation, nice slide work and everything. So nice job.
Thank you, Marisha. Teresa, you got your hand up?
Yes, I wanted to say the same thing that Marissa just said, but also I like when you said serve from my overflow. A lot of times we forget that once we serve, we're giving what we have. So we're serving from our overflow. That means we'll always be filled and able to continue to help someone else. Thank you for that.
Yes. And it brings you right back to abundance, right? And it's abundance in health, abundance in wealth, abundance in our spirituality, abundance in family relationships. All of this is really under the umbrella of abundance for me. Marianne? Oh,
I didn't put my hand up, but yeah, no, that was great. I loved it. And life isn't random. I know that everything's just designed. The whole universe is just designed. It's not random at all. And I totally believe that. And what you think, believe eventually becomes your experience. No, beautiful.
yes. Thank you for that. Kristen, you got your hand up?
Yes, just wanted to comment on as a reminder to all of us how important our words are. We say one thing, but we have to be intentional. We mentioned that earlier. Because sometimes we say one thing, but deep down we're thinking something else. So we need to make sure our words are in alignment with what it is that we desire.
Yes, that is so true. So I just want to say thank you all so much for this. And I'm going to edit this and I'm going to start creating the library. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Susan. Gotta go catch you with the thoughts. Thank you. Thank you so much. So yes. So as we go about this week, I want to just challenge you to think about who am I becoming? Okay, who am I and what do I want? And really focus on that. And Sophia, take the time for you. Like Carrie said, put yourself on the calendar. Sometimes even if you have to go start a little earlier in the morning. But you say your last child is doing his second year in college, right?
In his third year now. Thank you, though. He's in his third year.
He's in his third year now. So yes. So take time for you, and for all of us, we're so busy doing stuff, but we tend to find that when we pull back and we do that reset, like Dawn and Sharon is getting ready to do that reset. It so works. But we already know Natasha already got hers. She was off for a few days, you know? So this is so yeah, so I great to take time to reset, to pause and breathe and allow. And just before we make any major moves or before when we get up in the morning, we want to ask God for direction. So I want to leave you with this one uh affirmation that I got from the book. And it says, and then I'll close and end with this. And going back to the rhythm and rhyme, right? So Florence talks about let thy will be done this day. Today is a day of completion. I give thanks for the perfect day. Miracles shall follow miracle and wonders shall never cease. So, I mean, it's a great affirmation to start the day with every day. So I'm going to add this one to my repertoire. I'll put it in the chat. So I thank you all so much for joining. Please forgive me for going over time, and I look forward to next week. And next week, Saturday, I'm doing my talk at 12. We still gonna do next week, Saturday, 9:30. And if whoever wants to volunteer to do a presentation, let me know so I can so I can set you up, put you on the schedule. Who wants to say yes before we sign off? You don't have to do no, you can text me. Oh, Kristen? Okay, Kristen said yes. Thank you, Kristen. So Kristen, next Saturday, 9:30. Bye.
Okay,
Thank you,
bye.
Diane.
Thanks,
Bye.
Diane. Bye. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
Thank
Diane.
you. Thank you,
Bye-bye. Thank
Marissa,
you.
again.